Hello 382. So welcome back to today's lesson. Today we'll be going through the corrections. I know I have gone through some of the questions in class already, but for the purpose of today's recording, I'll be going through every question that is shown in your March holiday assignment. Alright, so if you have done some of the corrections already, you may always skip ahead to the questions in which you have not done the corrections. Alright, so without further ado, let us begin. Okay, so whenever we look at a geography question, okay, things to note is that you must always annotate the question. Alright, you need to highlight the command word as well as the question focus and the mark allocation. So this will help you to score the most amount of marks possible. Alright, so for the first question, it's a very simple line graph descriptions. So line graph are always related to time and in particular the changes over time. So in this case over here, we give you a graph on the number of buildings with rooftop gardens in country X in the year 2021. Alright, so the question is asking you with reference to figure 1. Okay, so with reference is a command word in this case and describe is a command word. So describe would require you to write about the graph. Alright, so what do they want you to write about? The changes in the number of buildings with rooftop garden. Okay, so you must write how has the number of buildings with rooftop garden changed, okay, in this year 2021. Okay, so we'll follow the GAS format, general, and then we go to any anomaly and the specific descriptions. So in this case, in general, when we look at general changes, we always look at the value at the start of the graph and the value at the end of the graph. Alright, so in general, there's an increase in the number of buildings with rooftop garden, okay, from 1,200 to 1,500. So the key things to take note here is the units as well. Alright, so you see the units here, they put in hundreds, which means that this would be 10 times 100, which would be 1,000. Alright, so at this value, it's 12, so 12 times 100, that is how I get 1,200 to 1,500 at the end. Okay, so next we look for other significant observations. So we can see that there's a gradual increase between March to August. So March is over here and August is towards the end here. Alright, so the values actually decrease very steadily between these two periods of time. Okay, if you want to be more specific in this case, you can actually change it to a gradual increase between March to June. Alright, so we can see that the gradient of the graph is actually moving very slowly upwards between March to June. This would be about 4,100. Okay, and between October to November, alright, there's actually a sharp decrease. So there's a sharp decrease in the number of rooftop gardens between October to November. Okay, so that is the last key observation. So now the things to take note of is also when you're giving your descriptor, alright, do not just include increase and decreases. You must describe the how it increase or how it decrease. So for example, between March to June, it is a very slow increase. So we say gradual increase. However, between October to November, there is a sharp change. Alright, the change is very drastic. So we call it a sharp decrease over here. Okay, so you will get 1 mark for each of the following to a maximum of 3 marks. That is how you score your marks. Alright, question number 2. Okay, study figure 2 which shows an urban community garden in Tiong Bahru Housing Estate. So with reference to figure 2, explain how community gardens contribute to social sustainability. Alright, so the command word is to use the figure and then you have to explain. So you need to give reasons. Alright, and the focus is on community gardens contributing to social sustainability. So social sustainability, we learned before that it is about being inclusive, being resilient to hazards, to disaster and all that. So you have to give reasons how the garden helped this thing to happen. How does it help us to be inclusive? How does it help us to be resilient? Alright, so let us look. It's a total of 3 marks. So you should be giving 3 points over here. Okay, you can get 1 mark for each of the following. All right. So number 1, the urban community garden acts as a shared community space that facilitates social interaction. All right. So this actually allows people to gather together and interact with one another. So an elaboration of the point would be the residents may come together, they can discuss how to maintain the garden and enjoy the benefits it brings. So this helps to bring them closer together. All right. And the next point is that the residents can work together to ensure that the plants grow well in the community garden. All right. So in working together, right, they are actually building bonds and positive relationship. So this bonding with one another, this positive relationship actually helps us to be more resilient. And through this, there will also be the culture of open communication, mutual understanding, and respect to one another. All right. So together, all this helps us to be more resilient in the event of a disaster or an hazard. Okay, because we are now closer together and we would be willing to work with each other. Okay, help each other out in any unfortunate event. All right. So you should have these 2 points and the elaboration as well, and that is how you score your 3 marks over here. All right. So next question. Okay. Describe one supporting ecosystem services the natural environment can provide to urban neighborhood. Okay. So supporting ecosystem services, as we learned in the textbook that it is about how the ecosystem provides services which helps enable the other services to function. Okay. So how does the ecosystem enables the provisioning services, the cultural services, right, as well as the regulating services. How does it help them to function? Because there is this supporting ecosystem services over here, right? So the 3 points are, okay, sorry, this is a 2-mark question. So award 1 mark for each of the following point up to a maximum of 2 marks. All right. So there's the soil formation. So soil formation happens when the microorganism and physical processes decompose organic matters. All right. Then the soil habitats for biodiversity and can also filter the water. All right. So all this helps the soil to be healthy, and when the soil is healthy, the plants will grow well. Okay. So other supporting services will also include the pollination of crops by bees and other animals. So it helps the crops to reproduce, and it provides food for animal and humans as well. Alright, and then the next point is how the plant absorbs sunlight and carbon dioxide to photosynthesize. So when it photosynthesizes, it maintains the oxygen content of Earth's atmosphere. Alright, and the final point is the photosynthesis is on photosynthesis as well, and how it maintains the oxygen content in the atmosphere. So it keeps the air quality healthy and allows the plant to grow well. Okay, so that is for question 3. It is quite a straightforward question. The only pitfall is that you did not focus on what is an ecosystem service. Right? So question 4. Okay, compare between provisioning and cultural ecosystem services. So what are these 2 points over here? Provisioning services, cultural services. All right. So it's a 3-mark question. You need to give 3 unique points. Also, when making comparison, make sure you give 1-to-1 comparison. All right. So you need to say what is provisioning services, and then what is it like in cultural services as well. All right. So we start off with the similarity. The first similarity is that both types of services brings about benefits from nature to the people. Alright, so both types of services actually is something which starts from the natural environment and how it helps us better our lives. Alright. Second similarity would be that the services are provided by living communities and non-living environment of the ecosystem as well. Okay, and then the services are critical to our survival. They are basically very important for us to live in a very good environment. Alright, and in some cases, to some extent, it provides food and water, enabling us to survive. Alright. Then the final similarity is that their benefits are optimized when we have a healthy and thriving natural environment. Okay, what does this mean? Okay, if the environment is healthy and thriving, so that means they are doing well. Okay, the plants are doing well. Okay, then the benefits will be the most, all right, for us. Okay, so if a forest is doing well, it's very healthy, it will provide us with the cleanest water. Okay, it will provide us with the most amount of food in terms of the animals that we can hunt. Okay, provide us with a better quality wood in the tree that we have. Okay, as such, we need to protect the ecosystem as well. All right. So, however, what are the differences? Okay, provisioning services provide tangible resources. Basically, these are resources which are physical, we can touch it. Okay, such as your wood, water, your fishes, and so on. All right. While cultural services provide intangible benefits. Okay, so intangible are things which we cannot touch. So benefits such as for benefits to our mental well-being, all right, or benefits to our health, okay, because we can walk around in the park, we can jog in the park. Okay, benefits to our mental well-being when we walk in the park. Okay, it can also provide educational benefits, such as when we bring you down to Bukit Gombak for your geography field trip, so you can actually learn things from these ecosystem services as well. Right, so that is for question 4. Now question 5, okay, another very straightforward question. So command word is to describe. So basically you have to write about how a question focus is over here, how a traffic hazard in an urban neighborhood can affect the residents. All right, so basically this question is asking about the impact of a traffic hazard. Okay, then you need to suggest one way. So you have to give a reason. Suggest is to give to give a reason. All right, give one way in which the town council may minimize the occurrence of traffic hazard. In other words, to reduce traffic hazard. All right, so 2 parts to this question. Total, this question is worth 3 marks. Okay, so 1 mark for each of the following 3 points. All right, so speeding and drink driving. Okay, so these are the common reason why there's a traffic hazard in a neighborhood. Speeding and drink driving, so they can cause people to suffer serious injury, disability, or loss of life. All right, so take note, this is a describe question, so you have to go on to elaborate why is it a problem. In other words, it actually harms the human because it causes suffering, disability, or loss of life. Okay, if you don't write this second part over here, you will not score the mark because this is a described question. All right, so these accidents are often caused by irresponsible motorists who put other users at risk. Okay, so this is the elaboration. All right, then for the second point, the town council can conduct road safety workshops to educate road users. Okay, so this suggestion can be anything which is plausible. One of the most common example is the conducting of road safety workshop. All right, then through the education, so I can elaborate also. I'll say through education, the road users are actually more aware of the harm they may cause, and this will cause them to be careful when they are driving. All right, next question. Okay, study figure 3, which shows the Urban Redevelopment Authority's URA development plans for Dover Forest. So this is a forest over here. Okay, with reference to the figure, evaluate how URA plans for the forest affect the ecosystem service provided. Okay, so over here when we talk about evaluate, okay, basically we want you to give the pros and cons. Okay, so the URA have some plans to change the forest, so you must tell us what are the pros and cons of these plans in relation to the affecting of the forest. Okay, based on the ecosystem services it provides. All right. So award 1 mark for each of the following, okay, up to a maximum 4 marks. So basically this is a 4-mark question. You need to give me 4 different points. All right. So evaluate is always on pros and cons, right? So you also have to give both sides. Okay, reserve 1 mark for a pro and 1 mark for a con. Okay, so let us start off with the pros. So the good thing about these plans is that the plan will make the nature area more accessible to the people. So this will result in more cultural ecosystem services provided to the people. Alright, so remember the question focus is how it affects the ecosystem services, right? So there are 4 different services. Okay, basically we are talking about how does these plans will create more cultural services as the visitorship improve. Alright, so as they take a walk through the park, okay, it improves their mental and physical well-being. Alright, so the second point would be the natural environment of the nature park and stream will be preserved, thus providing regulating services to the people. Alright, so remember you came across this question, right? This time round, the focus is very different, okay, because it is not about whether or not the park is being taken care of, but rather about what system it provides. Alright, so you see the second point is on how the natural park can be preserved, and then there would be the regulating services. Okay, they can provide regulating services. So the nature park is a forested area, so it reduces the possibility of floods. Okay, reducing surface runoff. The forested area in the parks can regulate the temperature and help keep the area cool by providing shade. So I go on to elaborate some of the additional points. Okay, so next point, okay, the preserved natural environment can help to provide supporting ecosystem services as well, right? So it provides the shade for animals, okay, it provides area for the soil formation. Okay, the forest actually enables the soil formation, helps the soil to be healthy, because when the organic matter are broken down, soil are formed and it provides a habitat for organisms, contributing to the biodiversity to the area as well. Okay, so these are just 3 examples about the good things to the ecosystem services. Alright, now how about the cons? Okay, so cons, the increased visitation to the park may cause more littering and damage to the vegetation. So thus the cultural services provided would be reduced. Alright, so this is also on the cultural services. Okay, however, it talks about the bad things that may happen to the cultural services as a result of the visitation to the park. Alright, so that's the first point. Okay, so the natural environment may be destroyed by irresponsible users, causing the place to no longer be aesthetically appealing. Okay, so it's no longer looking good. Alright, then the next point is on the construction. So construction of the new houses will cause a patch of the forest to be removed. So this will affect the ability of the forest to provide regulating services. Okay, so when we remove a whole patch of the forest, alright, the regulating services will actually be gone because the trees can no longer provide shade. So the temperature of the area is likely to increase. Right? So a very simple question. Basically, you just need to say the good things and the bad things about the plan, but essentially you have to link it back to the idea of the ecosystem services as well. Right? Okay, next question. So this is question 5. So this one would be question 6. Okay, so study figure 4, which shows the top-down view of Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park. Alright, so and the surrounding neighborhood. So the park is over here, then the neighborhood are to the side. Okay, so with reference to the figure, give a reason. Explain is give a reason. So give a reason how urban neighborhoods can benefit from the ecosystem services provided by the park. Alright, so basically it's trying to say what are the benefits that these residents over here can gain from the park. Okay, so if we look at the picture, right, what can they do in the park? That's the question we ask ourselves. So number one, definitely they can visit the park, they can walk around the park. So you see all these walkways, they can follow along it, they can stroll, they can jog, and so on. Alright, So the residents can take a stroll along the green corridor, the park connector and the stream, which improves their mental well-being. All right, so there's actually the cultural aspect of the ecosystem services over here. It improves their mental well-being. Okay, so the park is also in a forested area. It reduces the possibility of flood in the area, as the trees and the soil can work together to prevent the surface runoff from happening. So this reduces surface runoff from retaining water in the soil. Reduces surface runoff by retaining water in the soil, thus preventing flood from occurring. All right. So next benefit, the forest can lower the surface and air temperature by providing shade. Okay, quite a straightforward point. And the last one, the forest can enable soil formation, which provides habitat for organisms, contributing to biodiversity. All right, so these are all the benefits we can gain from the ecosystem from Bishan Park. All right, the ecosystem in Bishan Park. Okay, last question. All right. So describe the impacts of a fire in the neighborhood on the residents' health and how it affects the ecosystem services in nearby nature areas. Right, so this is a 3-mark question. However, the question is rather tricky, okay, because you need to write about the impacts of the fire on the person's health. Okay, so there are 2 points to it. First point is on the impacts on a person's health. Okay, second point is how it affects the ecosystem services in the nearby area. All right, so 1 mark for each of the following. Okay, definitely you need to address both sides in order to score all 3 marks. So first is on the impact on health. So people may suffer from burn injuries if they are not evacuated in time. Okay, so that is the key point. They suffer from the burn injury. All right. So the severe burns may cause permanent disfigurement, okay, possible disability, and even death. Okay, so this is an elaboration of the burn injury. Right. Okay, next point. So besides the burn injury, okay, the irritants from the fire such as the acid gases, okay, can permanently damage a person's respiratory system. Basically, it prevents them from breathing properly. Okay, so the damage may be permanent, thus reducing the quality of life for burn survivors, as they may face breathing difficulties for life. All right, so this is another impact on their health. Okay, then as to the impact on ecosystem services, okay, so the fire may spread throughout the neighborhood park, okay, burning down trees. All right, so why neighborhood park? Because the question here says in nearby nature areas. All right, so the fire may spread in the park, okay, burning down trees and damaging the plants in the area. All right, so this is the key idea. So once the plants are damaged, how would it affect the ecosystem services? Okay, so this causes a loss in the biodiversity in the park, and animal habitats, natural features will be destroyed. All right, so that is point number 1 of the possible points. The habitat features will be destroyed, so this actually affects the supporting ecosystem services. All right, then it also reduces the intangible benefits, such as opportunity for recreational activities as well as the aesthetic experiences of the park. All right, so basically when the park is being burned down, it will affect the cultural ecosystem services as well. Okay, because we can no longer go to the park for recreational activities. All right, and then we can also no longer enjoy the park for its beauty. All right, in other words, the aesthetic benefits. Okay, so we have come to the end of the March holiday assignment. Right, please feel free to comment down below if you have any questions to ask. Okay, you are required to do the corrections for all of these questions. Okay, and then once your corrections is completed, please submit your work to the class rep. Okay, and your class rep will pass the work to me. Alright, so that is all for today's lesson. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.